And now as a professional, there's like so many other aspects to storyboarding that aren't like on the board itself.
Storyboarding is also, to my brain, is completely counterintuitive in the way that like I need to constantly tell myself to like keep going forward.
So I guess I'm gonna introduce you guys. My two guests are my former co-story trainee at Blue Sky. Steph Waldo is a storyboard artist and illustrator based in the woods outside New York City, as she says on our website. She's currently storyboarding on a project at Blue Sky Studios and also making her own comics. She graduated from the communication design program at Washington University in St. Louis and is an alum of the CalArts character animation program as well. While Esteban Bravo is a director, writer, and story artist, currently storyboarding at Blue Sky as well. He's best known for co-directing the award-winning short In a Heartbeat, which also got him a Student Academy Award. And for the 2019 short music video, Freddie Mercury, Love Me Like There's No Tomorrow. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
So this is a new thing.
Action.
Hopefully it's gonna work out. And I guess whoever is subscribed to the channel, like the video, so you can support us, me especially, I guess. It's my channel. And whoever is watching is not subscribed, you can subscribe right now so you are updated. Also, because I don't know if I can post the whole video at once. I don't know how YouTube really works with longer interview thing. Anyway, so like I guess the idea of talking to you guys was because I didn't really have an interview with Blue Sky when I got into the trainee, and someone asked about it. So I thought it was interesting to talk to you guys. But I guess maybe we can start asking Steph first. How did you start it in animation? Like, how did you go, like, for example, to CalArts? What happened before I met you?
What happened before we met? I was born. I guess, should I start at like first college experience?
Yeah, whatever, wherever the whole thing started, I guess.
The whole thing, that's a long story. Let's see. So first, out of high school, I went to Washington University in St. Louis, which is like a broad school, like it's a real college, like the whole thing. And I went in like illustration, graphic design for that. And going to school, I knew I was interested in animation, but also interested in like children's books, illustration. So which is why I went for like a more broad approach. But like as I started doing it, I realized I wanted to be like in animation for sure. So then I started researching animation schools. And then I started also like my sophomore year going to CTN, and just like learning about animation as a whole. And then from that, I decided I wanted to go to CalArts. Went to CalArts for a year. And that fall is when I met Heather at CTN. I talked to Blue Sky, met some great friends of mine now there. And then I met with Blue Sky also at CalArts' Portfolio Day. And again, had a great conversation with them. Then they reached out to me about the trainee program. Animation industry. I guess I forgot to mention, like in the meantime, while I was at CalArts, I was doing some freelance stuff. So for WB, I did freelance stuff. And I got that through like different classes I was taking. So in addition to CalArts, I was doing like Rad Seacrest story class, like CGMA, CDA, those kinds of things. So through Rad, I got that position. And then also did some stuff for Anima in Mexico City, but that's also from Portfolio Day at CalArts. I guess that was very unorganized, but that's kind of how it happened. Trainee program, and then I met you.
In the meantime, Esteban is moving away from the storm. What about you? What happened before we met? How did you get into animation and wrangling and all that?
I got into wrangling because I was studying in Mexico in an animation program, and I realized that like their animation curriculum wasn't really like animation specific. We covered video games and whatnot. So my original plan was to study abroad, and I finally just told my dad I really wanna do that, and he was like, well, fine, and I just put together a portfolio with no life drawings, and I have no idea how I made it into Ringling. No figure drawing, no anything. But yeah, I just started there. Pretty much went through through the college experience, but I didn't do any internships during the summers or anything, because I was very tired. And actually I just didn't apply because I was an idiot, and I was like, no one's gonna want to hire me, so I never applied to anything. Don't do that. Um, and then my final year, I applied to like a bunch of studios, and I applied for story and animation because I was undecided about what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do animation first, but you don't really like know what you want to do until you're actually doing it professionally. Like you don't realize how different it is because in a school environment, when you're doing everything, the experience of doing story versus animation like is basically sort of like you don't really understand how the departments differ and your job day to day differs. So I was hoping that a studio would just kind of pick for me. It's like, oh, your animation is good. We're gonna hire you as an animator. But Blue Sky offered me both an animation internship and the story trainee, which it was. I mean, it was fun trying both of them and trying to see like which one I wanted most. I did the animation internship first, so I was already at Blue Sky for a little bit, and I got to meet people. So that when we started on the traineeship and they gave me a studio tour, I remember I was like saying hi to everyone, and you were like, "What the hell? Like, what does he know?"
Who
People,
is this guy?
who's this guy? And yeah, that's I guess does that cover it?
Yeah, so I guess like you chose storyboarding after you tried different things, right?
Um, well, basically, when the student film like came out and it got a lot of attention, Blue Sky really kind of like wanted me to stay, so I got a contract deal with them like right after that happened, and they kind of like gave me a contract. I didn't even know what they were giving me the contract for. I thought that it was going to be an animator, but they like secured me for story. So before I even started doing storyboarding, I had the contract. You don't even know if I'm good at it or not.
What about you, Steph? Why did you choose storyboarding instead of other, I don't know, animation or
Yeah,
other
yeah,
departments?
yeah, that's a good question. So for me, again, like I didn't have a lot of knowledge about animation in first college, like in my first degree. So I had been like really invested in thumbnailing for illustration, and like for each of my projects, I'd bring in like 50 thumbnails, like when like five were expected. And a teacher for me was like, "Have you heard of storyboarding? Because that's kind of what you're doing already." So I mean, that kind of was like a natural tendency for me
So
because I was
this
really
was in
interested.
St. Louis already?
Yeah, yeah. So I was in St. Louis at the time. Yeah, and I think I was just naturally inclined to the skills that are in storyboarding. I think that's what I like about image making, like as a thing. So
So when you were in CalArts, you already knew you would do storyboarding, right?
yeah, yeah, I was already like obsessed with storyboarding, and like I had like researched like where do I go for story, where story me now, please. So I went to CalArts, like yeah.
And like when you met people from Blue Sky at CTN, I guess like they noticed you. This is a question for both of you. Like, what do you think was the thing that made you stand out to them? If you can think of something that you would suggest to someone who's looking at the video and is like wondering how do I get noticed from a big studio?
I guess I'll go first. So at CTN, this is the first time like I interacted with Blue Sky. So it was like that normal exchange where you like get a ticket from the person standing there, you wait, you get a time. I showed up. I had a meeting with one of the story artists, which was Heather, who I know now, and Heather's fantastic, and we're really good friends. Um, I guess from in like inside of my portfolio, I took a lot of effort to like get my personality in there, like on the like welcome page and things like that. And Heather and I kind of bonded over like plants and like silly things that we like now. Um, and Heather and I had a good conversation about like how similar our experiences were because she also went to like a like college, not like an art school college, and did a lot of like outside work. And like I think Heather kind of saw herself in me, and we like bonded over that. I think that was really important. And then later too, I have no idea where this came from. When I was talking the second time with Blue Sky, I did not know that I had been on their radar for like 2 years before that, and they were just like waiting for me skill wise to get there. And I had no idea that like anyone had even opened my portfolio at that time. So it's important to get yourself out there, like Esteban said, and apply. So.
What about you, Esteban? What do you think was something, well, other than your short film, which was outstanding, if I can say, um, what do you think was something that made you stand out?
I think because the way that it works, and the first time that I met the Blue Sky recruiters was when they came over to Ringling. They have a lot of studios come and visit, so you get to get interviewed by recruiters. And I remember the recruiters at the time, I think it was Mindy, and it was Adam Coots, the head of story at Blue Sky, and an animator, Eric Lynn. So I think uh, what initially, because we submit a bunch of portfolios, and then they decide which ones uh, they want to interview, and I think there is a standard that they're looking for just like straight away. If it's sort of industry standard, and if it's good draftsmanship, and it's like eye-catching because they have to go through so many of them, like millions of portfolios. If your draftsmanship isn't at a certain level, then they won't really even like take the time to like really like dig through it, which sometimes I think is a bad thing because not everyone has the same draftsmanship, and everyone has like different ideas or different ways of presenting a story. But in terms of what we're asked to do at our job, we have to be really good at communicating very simple ideas very fast. So there's just a quality to that. And then after that, I think what uh, I had a really good interview with them, and we got along with each other. And I guess like that really helped a lot to like make me stand out in that. I remember having a really good conversation with Adam, and the ideas I think that were presented in my portfolio, because when I applied, I had the storyboards for the short film, my thesis, in a heartbeat, and I had storyboards for another pre-pro idea. Both of those I had developed with Beth as well, and I had a few other ideas, and I think they loved the concepts of it so much that it was very memorable for them. And if you have just a strong concept more than like good draftsmanship, that also will make you stand out.
And did you both have an interview later? Because I remember like when I talked to Adam, because I came through, I got into like the training program because I met Adam at CTN, and he was the one who kind of suggested my name. And but I never had like an actual interview. Like I emailed him, I was like, "Can I have feedback?" He was like, "Actually, I'm gonna discuss about trainee program in like 2 days. Do you want me to suggest your name?" I was like, "Sure." And then I never had an interview, anything. Did you guys have an interview? Did you talk to the team before being selected?
I mean, I guess I had a really casual phone interview with all of the heads of story at the time. So it was the three heads of story.
And how was that? Like, because like one like the specific question I got was like, do you have suggestion when you have like interviews with big studios? And I was like, I actually just skip that. So do you have any tips of?
Yeah. I mean, so that was a really casual interview. So like, I think generally the internship interviews are like such a casual conversation on the phone, just to like get to know you as a person and like just be a normal human on the phone, and you should be fine. But I think on like the like I think it's the same no matter what as you go up like to a real professional job. Like it's just to like get to know you as a person. Like it's the stuff you can't get from a portfolio, you know?
Yeah. Someone once told me that they're just checking that you're not like a psycho and that you're not gonna kill them.
Yeah.
That's what they told me once.
Yeah.
Did you have like an interview, Esteban?
Yeah, I did as well. I had both an interview, and I have to say that like the interview, it's like very different depending on the department and the studio, because my interview with the heads of story was also super casual. Like we were just, after it ended, I was like, was that an interview? Like, did I answer any question? I don't remember. Uh, it was more of a conversation. But then I had the animation interview later, and that one was like brutal as an interview. Because I was with the animation supervisors, and they were just like, so what movies do you like? What are your inspirations? What are your weaknesses as an animator? What are your strengths? And so like a lot of questions that the other interview hadn't really mentally prepared me for. But yeah, I mean, I'd say like it depends. But I agree that most of it is just to make sure that you are a good fit with the team and that they will like working with you and having you around.
And what was your first impression working for a big studio? Was it everything you expected? Was it different?
That's a hard
Did you even remember what you expected from the studio from working there?
I walked in the doors and you were there. I don't know. Esteban was there. We got our photo taken and it was horrifying. Um,
I
I
mean,
think I expected.
I don't know. Like my experience at the studio evolved a lot because at first we were working like together as like a trainee group, and like that was fun. And I remember also that was just like very stressful because you have sort of like you want to prove yourself to the people that you're working with. And I remember it being kind of stressful. I don't know. How do you guys remember it?
No, I agree. Like I feel like the
I
whole
don't
trip.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was stressful. You already had a contract. You were safer.
Well, I was still like thinking that I hadn't proved myself, so I was just like, I'm a failure. I don't know how to do anything. But I don't know. I mean, I think my experience and my skills have improved, like overall, like over time. If I look right now at like the stuff that we did for our trainee program, I no, no.
Never look back. Just don't look back. Keep looking forward.
Actually, like to me, like it was looking back, it wasn't that stressful. I find more stressful working for like TV, like high-end TV shows like Netflix,
Mm.
because they still have like the TV deadline, but they have like a higher quality. So like, and also like I find like when I was at Blue Sky, like the way we worked on as a trainee, you always had like a second chance. You talk to your mentor, they give you feedback, you go back, you fix, you always improve the sequence. While like I find TV, for example, you can't go back. Like once it's done, it's done. It's out of your hand, and that's it. In next episode. So I
I
guess
feel like that's kind of personal too, though. I feel like for me, like the trainee program was kind of stressful, like because every time you go back to it second time, you're like, oh no, I didn't do it right the first time. I need to get it right the first time. So it's like kind of a personal thing too, if that makes sense. Because you know, if you like, for me, like if you finish it and like they just take it from that week, like you would in a TV setting, even though like that might not be perfect, but to me, I'm like, oh, it was wonderful. They've taken it and it's gone now. Like I did an excellent job. I don't know.
well,
Yeah.
that's true. Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
find
think
like,
it's yeah, personal.
for example, like I find like I had like one big regret of my trainee experience was that I didn't know how to use my mentor. Like
Hmm.
like toward the end of the whole thing, I realized that I should have used Jeff in a different way. Jeff was my mentor. Use him like in a different way, like because I should have bug him and try to get as much as possible, but I was more just going back from the meeting and just working on it. And then it was almost time for the next meeting, and I didn't really like. He would come by and try to get me to ask questions, but I didn't know how to properly use a mentor at the time. So
Yeah, I think it's also knowing like what questions to ask too, because like obviously like I still work with Heather, who was my mentor, and I feel like over the years, like I still like you as a Heather as a mentor to me. Like I can still go to her as like and ask questions now, even though we're both storyboard artists. But I feel like I get more utility out of visiting Heather now than I would have as a trainee because I know what questions to ask and like yeah, what I'm looking for even rather than like being this lost child and just like sitting in her office and vibrating and not knowing what to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that though you got some really important things out of like Heather, even the trainee program, because I remember also being really scared of Remy, who was my mentor. But I because I didn't want to seem like I had it like I needed help. I wouldn't ask stupid questions. I wanted to ask stuff that like I was like, oh yeah, so um not even because I remember there was a time for you, Steph, that like she taught you how to do shorthand for a specific character.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
yeah. But that's not a question that I think I would ever have the guts to tell Remy. It's like, how do you do shorthand for this character? Or how do you develop a shorthand in general? But it's stupid questions like that that I think are really important tools and give you the tools in order to really succeed as a story artist. Um,
Well, I think stupid questions like that are so important as like an intern or trainee because your school doesn't give you that tool set because it's so specific to storyboarding, and like as a professional storyboard artist, that might seem like very straightforward, but like how are you supposed to learn that any other way? Like I don't know.
Especially when you're taught sort of like, and you've engineered drawing for the most of your life for you to produce something that is really beautiful and elaborate. Storyboarding is, I think, also to my brain is completely counterintuitive in the way that like I need to constantly tell myself to like keep going forward and stop that. And eventually I get to a place where I'm more impatient to uh, finish the board that I'm currently working on, but it's taken a while for me to get there. Yeah, but I don't know that. What were we talking about?
I actually don't remember. I actually lost a thought during this, but I
Mentor.
guess like the next question I would have is because like when the training ended, like I moved back to Canada, but you stayed on. So I guess my question would be what's the biggest difference you find between the time you were like a trainee and now that you're like on a contract? What changed?
I changed. It's just so different being a trainee versus being like hired full time because it's trainee there's so many questions and you're new to this, you're not sure what you're doing, and like by getting hired like there's some like automatic confirmation of your skills there, so that gives you like a good boost moving forward into the next bit if that makes sense. But I mean there were things I still had to learn as a professional, like learn that I could still ask other questions and like still treat my head of story like my mentor and ask questions and not be afraid to not know, if that makes sense. Um, I don't know what the big Esteban. What do you think the biggest difference?
I think I don't know. I found the program to be a little bit more and I don't know if it was because it was like stressful as well, just as a first time like story artist anywhere. Um, but I think there were a lot of similarities in the way that remember when we were working on this like short that it was just for us, but then we flipped the story like upside down, and then we were trying to figure out the story halfway, and like what we got from the script eventually wasn't even what we were boarding. I feel like that's how it goes in production as well. Like there's some cases in which you will get pages and everything is sort of like pretty well ironed out and you board it, it goes right through. It's like very seamless. But that's not generally how it goes. Like whenever you get pages, sometimes like they don't, like the pages don't really account for the way that something will look on screen, how much something will take, the building and the tension, the texture of a scene, like that kind of a thing. Like you don't really get that. So I found that still applies to what we're doing. Like we're still trying to workshop scenes and like trying to get them to work, working with the writers. I think the only thing is that I don't feel anymore like I'm my own team, or like it's just us. It does feel like it's like there's the directors, the heads of story, like everyone else, and like that's how you can with everyone, with all the team, you can build the story reels.
I
Yeah.
also feel like in the trainee program, like my focus was so much like on the like physical making of boards, like draftsmanship and like depth staging, all of that, like acting. And now as a professional, there's like so many other aspects to storyboarding that aren't like on the board itself, like thinking about like scene construction and like how to work with the pages, or like how even to like behave in a meeting and like get your ideas heard, or like just have a discussion. I think that that's also something that like my focus has kind of shifted towards, just because I can. Like I've learned that stuff as a trainee, and like I have the attention span for it.
Well, I guess I'm gonna do a final question, because like the whole idea of the channel was born from the idea like I am a professional, but I'm still like new enough that I remember when I was not, when I was like in school, and I guess we are in the same boat. So like, looking back, I don't know if you already answered, but looking back, what was the thing that you didn't know when you got into storyboarding or animation, but you wish someone told you? Is there anything?
Mm. Let's see. I feel like everyone told me that I was going to be okay, but I didn't believe them. And like, I don't even know how to get through my head at that time. Like that, it'll be okay. Like legit, like one day you'll get there. But if I had believed that, I feel like that would have made the experience a lot more enjoyable overall. If that makes sense, I would have taken a
Maybe
lot.
you wouldn't be there if you didn't have that bit of doubt, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, like a tap of doubt. But I think I had a whole glass of doubt. Maybe a glass of doubt would have been helpful. I think I like obviously now I look back on like that time fondly. But obviously that's in the past, and like you wash away a little bit of like the anxiety and worry and like bad parts of that, and I think I could have had a lot more fun. Like just
Do
being on the journey of getting here and enjoying that journey.
you feel like now you don't feel as much that you have to prove yourself on every
Right.
board,
It's
or
a
do you
hint of
still have
doubt.
it or not?
Definitely like a hint of doubt, always, but not like a whole glass that is like paralyzing, if that makes sense. Like it's enough to keep you moving and keep improving yourself and like assessing your own boards and keep growing as a person, but not enough to like paralyze you or ruin your time at all.
What about you, Esteban? Is there anything that comes to mind that you, looking back, you wish someone told you when you were not yet a professional?
So someone told me while I was studying, but not a professional yet. Um, I mean, this is I guess something that like not only applies to storyboarding but animation as a whole. But like working at a studio in a feature studio means that your job is not just to shine as a story artist and like create your own stories, but for you to like work in a team and like realize someone else's vision. And for me to like understand that and get in that headspace and be like, I am trying to realize the director's vision on this and not specifically what I think is cool for this scene or what I want to see out of it. Like there's obviously a balance of it where you're just obviously you're there because they want your sensibilities, like your story sensibilities, but you're also there because you need to build this movie with a bunch of other people. And I didn't understand that at all until I went into into animation, into a feature studio. And the same thing applies when you're in like an animator. You're gonna be given a scene and whether you agree with what the character is doing or thinking or not, like that's not your job. Your job is to understand why that character is doing that. And there's other times for you to be critical in that way. So trying to find the right mindset to work is one of the things that like has been a challenge, and I wish I understood a little bit better. I mean, I don't know about you, Camilo, but like, do you feel like that with your work after you left Blue Sky and stuff, or
I mm, like
because you have had a
I feel like
different path?
it was something that it was clear to me when I was a Blue Sky. I remember like we had a meeting and someone was like I think it was like a story department meeting, and someone was like I don't understand why we do boards in this way, and then when they get edited, they're not the same thing. So it was some discussion like that, and Adam was like, what we have to understand as a department, as a group, is that we're not making our own film. We are here to help, as you said, to help realize someone else's vision. And you might think that your idea is better, but it doesn't really matter, right? And I always, when I left Blue Sky, I always thought, like as long as I get a paycheck, this is not my idea. Like when I'm gonna do it for free, I can start like, you know, tell people what I think. But like I still say if I read a script or there's a scene that I'm like it doesn't really make sense, I bring it up. But if they tell me that's what we want, that's what I give them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a lot more that's the big difference between like working on a big studio like Blue Sky or doing freelance. Because even when I do freelance for like for example feature film, they often have a script and they already went through a lot of either like version of the script and they're like this is what we need and then they're like on a train and you can't stop it. Like if the script doesn't make sense, you can change some of it, but you just have to deliver, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I I always thought that the client has like I am giving a service. That's how I feel it.
Yeah, and that's something that I wasn't expecting when I was in school, but it's much more of like the mindset that that I have to put myself in, not only to be valuable as a story artist, but also for like uh, my mental and creative well-being, if if that makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise you're gonna be very frustrated and very upset all the time.
Yeah.
But you also have, I guess, you also have to learn as a story artist when to give them your opinion. There are things that because sometimes you are serving their vision, but sometimes if you just bring it up, you might bring up something they never consider, and once they hear it and they're like, oh man, this is much better, right? So I feel like you have to learn a balance, and you still present your ideas, but don't pretend they're gonna use it. I guess.
I feel
Yeah.
like the part of that skill set that I learned like after being a trainee, like it's again that like professional sphere of like when is the time to say I think this is a bad idea, and when it's just like take it to your desk and finish it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for this.
No problem.
No
Uh,
problem.
it was nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you. It's
It's
nice to
great.
see Canada.
You like Canada? Yeah.
Canada's great. I love it.
Looks different, right, than US.
So different.
Some wisdom, some final wisdom.
I have
Nothing?
fun.
Um, I guess yeah, just don't be afraid to ask the stupid questions. Even as a student, and if you want to reach out to like people and ask like the specifics of something, um, just don't be afraid to do that. And I guess also put in the time to work on your draftsmanship and your story skills, study movies and stuff like that, but also live your life, and that's where you're gonna get like a lot of inspiration from. And oh, also another thing that I learned when I went to a big studio, was that hobbies matter just as much as like art. Like if you have hobbies or anything else outside of art, that instantly makes you more interesting and valuable to other people. So like don't be feel like you have to sacrifice everything for art, because you are a person and you are whole and there's other facets of you. So if you have any other background and if you didn't want to be like, if you didn't know that you wanted to go into animation until you were in college or like, I mean, until you were in high school, like don't be ashamed of that. Like Heather, which was Steph's mentor, she was, wasn't she like in Africa studying zebras?
Yeah, she studied biology in college. She like went to an Ivy League school and studied biology and went to Africa. She's great. Yeah, I
And
think like
yeah.
like most of what this me, Heather, Becca, a bunch of the other like ladies in the department have other degrees or like other people had like studied other things and didn't even study art to begin with. Like I think it's important to like follow that.
Oh, I just took a picture. I didn't do
All right. Well, now I see the picture you took.
I was trying to full screen it. I'm sorry. But now
All
I
right.
have a picture.
I'll just stop the conversation here. Thanks so much for being my guest on this first experiment of an interview that hopefully it's going to be interesting to other people, not just us. And thanks so much for so much wisdom and insight. And I'll talk to you guys soon. And
Right. Well, thanks for everything, Camila.